I am Brad Keelor. They are Lucas and Dora de Melo. Coming up next on Director's Cut, on our very special Thanksgiving episode, find out why they always go to the doctor.
If I know what I know, then no one will watch over you. So someone shouldn't really tell me what I want to know. I know that matters don't matter.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. My name is Brad Keelor. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and that is why we called this show Director's Cut. Every single week, except 1 week at the holidays and during the summer, I sit down with a different GI member who has all kinds of stories to tell. Some of them are personal, some are professional, but the line is that all of them are fun. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this interview today, type on over to geoinstitute.org. There you will find out a lot of things about us, including that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And if you like what you see today, and if it gets you in the Thanksgiving spirit, you should click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Of course, since this is the very special Thanksgiving episode of Director's Cut, we do what we do every year, and that is to bring on a geotechnical family. And so we have not one, but two guests this week, coming to us all the way from Brazil, but he works in Columbia, Maryland, which is a lot less exotic. He's a senior principal geotech at Geosyntec. It's Lucas de Melo and his daughter, who is a PhD candidate at UC Davis in Davis, California. It's Dora de Melo. Welcome, guys. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, Brad, and thanks for having us over. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
We've got 10 questions today, the same as we do every week, and a couple of them might be Thanksgiving themed. We ask same two questions every week as part of those 10, and we start with one of those. It's describe your job in 45 seconds, and Dora, I think you get to lead off the first one.
Great. Yeah. So, hi, everyone. I am a PhD candidate here at UC Davis, working with Professor Jason DeYoung. And my job involves a lot of different things. In addition to that, I'm the president of the Geotechnical Graduate Student Society. So a little bit of things on the administrative side, organizing some of our big events and getting the ball rolling on those things. And then on the research side, I research the intersection of sustainability and geotechnical engineering, specifically for pile foundations. So I think we'll chat a little bit more about those details later, but that's the overall responsibilities I have here.
Lucas, you're up next.
I'm, as Brad mentioned, I'm a geotechnical engineer. Have been working with dams for almost 30 years now. It was my first job out of school, and I keep doing it, and I'm very happy to see the industry evolving to risk-based engineering to evaluate the likelihood of failures of dams, and also to design based on risk. It's a risk-informed design, and I think the industry, the Corps of Engineers, Bureau of Reclamation, FERC, are doing a fantastic job pushing this forward. And to me, it's something that makes me feel very fulfilled working with dams. We need dams for water, for industry, for agriculture, for recreation. There's a scarcity of water. There's the infrastructure is aging, as ASCE reminds us every year. There's changes in climate. There's growth in population. There's the population downstream that first and foremost could suffer fatalities in case of a failure. And I'm extremely passionate about that, what makes my job easier every day.
I like that. And for both of you, we're going to talk a little bit more about what you're working on here in a minute. But, you know, we load Director's Cut up with these amazing, hard-hitting journalistic questions every week. We're going to go to one of those next. And Lucas, you're going to be first up on this one. At what temperature do you consider the weather to be cold?
The temperature is increasing directly proportionally to my own age. So I think right now is about 65. I already feel chilly. So there you have it.
Dora, how about you?
Gosh, it it depends on where I've been living. Honestly, I in Maryland, my threshold was much higher, so I could do 40 and it would still be okay. I did my undergrad at Ohio State, and we had a polar vortex that year, and still went to class and did all the things and walked in ice almost every winter. But now that I'm in Davis, I think once it reaches about 50, I already have the heater on in my apartment. So
I think it also depends on the other factors, right? I dropped my car off at the shop this morning, and I had to walk from the metro station over here, and the sun was out. This is like our first really cold morning of the year. It was like 35 degrees outside, but the sun was out and there was no wind, so it was pretty good. It is now raining and windy, and I'm not really looking forward to that walk back to the metro station. So, but I think, Lucas, I'm also with you. Not everybody believes this. I turned 45 this year, and I'm feeling kind of elderly. And in my old age, I think, when I remember playing hockey outside on the pond when I was a kid in Michigan, and it would be below zero, and we'd be in T-shirts. I don't think I could do that now. It's
Yep, I feel you.
So we do have to talk a little bit more about your work, guys. And the third question is always the research practice question. So I guess what we've got here is a little bit of a split. Dora, it's going to be the research question for you. Lucas, it's going to be the practice question for you. And Dora is going to be first up on this one. When I asked you what we were going to talk about on this one, you said something like you had taken over the sustainability analysis, which I think you should tell everyone who asks you, because that sounds really good. And then you use the term optimizing pile foundations, and I think that's really all we need to get you going. Tell everybody what you're working on there at Davis.
Yeah, so Davis is part of the Center for Biomediated and Bioinspired Geotechnics, CBBG. And in addition to incorporating biogeotechnical processes into practice, one of the big goals is also to see how sustainable some of these new techniques were. And out of that need, there were a couple of students before me who worked on analyzing some of the sustainability aspects of these new approaches. And when I started my program here, they had since graduated, and so we saw an opportunity to kind of take that research a little bit further. And so rather than looking specifically at some of the new approaches to things that CBBG focuses on, we decided to look at something that is more commonly used in practice, like pile foundations, and how we can apply the knowledge that we have of sustainability thresholds, I suppose, and apply that into something that's more commonly used. And so that was a whole lot of background, but essentially what I'm looking at is first how we can select different pile types to minimize impact. So looking at steel tubular piles versus cast in place concrete piles, et cetera. And what we've been doing is applying a new CPT-based method for pile capacity calculation out of University of Western Australia, and applying these new methods that are more accurate to design piles for certain serviceability limits and safety limits as well. And then on top of that, adding the sustainability component. So looking at how we can both keep everything safe and stable and doing its job, but also adding on the piece of minimizing impacts to the environment, like global warming potential or greenhouse gas emissions and whatnot. So it's a little bit of both, the geotech side of things, but then also incorporating the sustainability and looking at, in addition to that, looking at how we can move from a deterministic analysis to a probabilistic analysis of safety, and how really going in towards that side of things, you can see how there's a lot of over design in what we do, and how we can minimize that and subsequently minimize the environmental impacts as well. So a lot of moving parts, but it all comes together kind of nicely at the end there.
Oh, I like that. I had two follow-up questions that were really silly and not technical at all, but then you said something at the end that you're going to get a little bit of a more challenging one, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
When you guys look at that over design, I mean, I think this is something that happens in pretty much all engineering disciplines, right? But it's for different reasons, I think, depending on what the project is or where you're coming from. What causes did you guys identify for some of that?
Yeah, so a lot of it is when you're designing for a specific factor of safety. Sometimes the loads are unknown, and so there's a factor of safety that's tacked onto that, and so you're designing for a threshold that may or may not be achieved. And then the other thing with in addition to that too is site characterization, the amount of information that we have to go off of. And so to your point, where what I'm working on now, a little piece of it is looking at homogeneous deposits versus deposits with correlated structures for relative density and other soil properties, and seeing how I guess the increase in site characterization can help decrease some of that over design if you know what you're working with more specifically. So a couple of things there. I think a lot of times the lack of information can lead to a need, honestly, a lot of times to have a more robust safety framework. But it does, you do kind of get lost in the math sometimes when you have all these values and you backtrack to see where they're coming from, and you get to the crux of it, and there's a factor of 2 on everything. And so there's a lot of deconstructing that, I think, in the work that I've been doing.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that was a perfect answer too, because I'm expecting you to say something like, well, because people can and it's cheap. Like, I feel like sometimes that's the thinking, right? Is that it's cost effective, so why not, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, from an academic sense, I think maybe sometimes those more practical things are the last things we think of, and I'm sure going into industry or wherever I end up, if I go out of academia, then that's a reality check that you have to come to terms with, right? Not everything is theoretical, and you, at the end of the day, you have the bills to pay. So
you made a lot of practitioners watching this very happy with that. It's really good. So
have
Lucas,
good training.
So Lucas, for you, we're going to talk about dam safety, and we're going to talk about a quantitative risk framework. You referenced the FERC changes that happened a few years ago, the regulatory changes that came through a couple of years ago, and I think that's my setup for you. So tell us about that.
No, that's a great setup, Brad, and something that I think the industry is very passionate about and ramping up to what the future will bring. A few years ago, or maybe more than a few years ago, Geosyntec made a conscious decision of start to prepare for the day that all the industry would be following the Bureau of Reclamation and the Corps of Engineers' great work around dam safety, right? That is looking into this from a risk perspective, as other industries like nuclear power has been looking into risk for many years. and this makes sense, and I think everybody's excited about, or most of the people who have been working on them are excited about it, because things become multidimensional. Like the previous regulatory framework, or the way that I grew up doing engineering, was focused on one factor of safety or one type of failure mode, or some very prescriptive on types of evaluation, and these actually made sense. But as the infrastructures were getting older, loads were changing. We understand more about seismic loading, flood loading, and failures or near misses became more frequent. The static framework that the industry was using was no longer providing, I think, what the engineers should be providing to society. We have you work on that area, Brad, and so does Dora. We become engineers, and we have a mathematical mind and a physical mind, right? We probably could do well at Wall Street, many of us, and we decided to join the profession because we are in good part passionate about it. There's a human component of making a society better, and that's what I think this framework is leading us to. It's the beginning of the process. Things may be a little bit, like turbulent right now, but I think we're gonna get to a steady state soon. I also like some big advantage of that in my mind is that owners will be able to pinpoint or to better spend funds on things that actually lower the risk, rather than things that are mandated to do and it's not helping society, right? I think it can be helpful for water management, water resources management. It's going to have an impact on the environmental consequences that you may have when of these dams fail or misbehave, and you have to lower the entire pool, and therefore you're going to be impacting the environment behind the dam. There's many benefits to that, and I'm very hopeful that in a handful of years, while I'm still working and have not retired, risk and risk quantification and risk evaluation will be subject of undergrad civil engineering classes across the country and the world. So
I do have to ask you about the FERC regulations, okay? And
Sure.
We're not going to hit you with any specifics here. I'm not going to ask you to quote anything from them. I'm more interested as the person speaking for the entire geotech community right now. How did you feel when those regulations were revised and when they actually hit the streets? Because it's an arduous process, right? It's years and years and years of work to rewrite regulations. You can't ever make anybody happy. And obviously with something like this, it impacts health and safety, and then you kind of have to start right over again as a community rewriting these things. But for you as somebody out there, consultant practicing in the field, what did it mean to you when those were revised the last time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. There's roughly around 100,000 dams in the U.S. right now. 4,000 of them, in round numbers, are regulated by FERC because they produce electricity. They tend to be the larger dams. Of course, there's many other large dams that do not produce electricity from one reason or the other, and they're usually regulated by the state regulatory agency, whatever it is, depending on the state you are in, right? So FERC is doing a fantastic job on ramping it up. It's not all the dams that is gonna be. They will take probably 10 years to implement this process to all the dams in the U.S., right? So there's this benefit to that. Secondly, these regulations, as you know, they have to go through public comments and all that before they become in effect. And so the industry had time to prepare to it. Those that wanted to prepare should have prepared and had the opportunity to. And thirdly, even before the process began, I attended a workshop in Atlanta by FERC. I believe it was in 2013, and they were talking about that. So the regulations got in effect maybe 10 years before the entire industry knew what it was heading to, and hence my comment earlier on about like Geosyntec made a conscious decision about 10, 12 years ago to focus on that and be ready, because it's not the future of the industry, it's the present of the industry, and it's our responsibility to advance the safety of the population downstream of dams and of those that depend on water to survive.
Oh, that's a great answer. And, we never get political on this show, but I think with a lot of people don't realize how important a lot of these regulations are to the health and safety of the country. And, you could go on a whole list of other items. It's not like a government agency is developing these in a box with no external input. I mean, there's a lot of industry preparation, as you said in your answer. I think that's vital to the process.
Sure. And we talk about critical infrastructure, right? And we know that for example, nuclear power plants or data centers, they are considered to be like critical infrastructures. Humanity could survive without those, right? It would not be easy. We may lack power to turn our heater and AC on, or we won't have this fast AI readily accessible on your cell phone. But without water, I can tell you, you won't last 2 days. So that's where the priority should be, in my opinion. Like engineering is much more math and physics and sciences, right? It's much more than that. There's lots of human components that we need to keep in our heart when we exercise our professions.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, we mentioned at the top of the show that you're in Brazil. You're not just there as a tourist. The two of you are Brazilian Americans, and so I felt I had to get a question in here about Brazil. Thanksgiving coming up next week. I don't know. I hope most Americans realize that nobody else is celebrating Thanksgiving next Thursday. So I wanted to ask the two of you, what's the closest thing to Thanksgiving that's celebrated in Brazil? And I guess on this one, Lucas, you get to go first.
Well, if it's about getting together, eating good food, and having family drama, it may be every other weekend, right? Because we get together here really frequently, and there's no planning. Someone shows up, and then you are sending messages, and instead of 2 people, you have 20 in a matter of half an hour. But I think if you think about being thankful and being grateful and reflecting over where you are as a family and as a community, I think it would be the Christmas. Christmas it happens here during the summer break. So it's like, imagine if Christmas was during July. So everybody's on vacation, all the kids should be home, and it would be like the something more similar from that perspective.
So Dora, I think for you, I'm going to ask you the follow-up here. As somebody who got to celebrate the holidays in 2 different cultures and 2 different places like that, what was the coolest thing for you to be able to take advantage of that?
Yeah, I guess. Well, when we first moved to the U.S., I was just so obsessed with the idea of snow because I had never seen snow. And so for me, we've never had a truly white Christmas. I guess we've had some snow flurries here and there. But for me, it felt, you see Christmas in the movies and they're always by the fireplace and all of that. And so now the idea of celebrating like Thanksgiving and Christmas in a warmer climate feels much weirder than not. So I guess I've gotten kind of used to the Christmas spirit being in the winter. But I think that in terms of the cultural differences, I think one that we haven't touched on, New Year's is really big in Brazil. And I think that actually there's a lot of similarities with the food tradition and whatnot as we have in Thanksgiving. We typically make a small turkey on New Year's. Some people do in Brazil. And there's a lot of superstitions on what foods to eat to bring good luck for the new year and whatnot. And so I think in terms of the differences, New Year's has more traditional activities, I guess, than in Brazil than here. So that's another big one for us over there.
Oh, I like that. And I like that you helped me dispel a myth, right? You see all these beautiful pictures of the Capitol with snow on it and everything. And I'm like, where did these come from? Because
Yeah.
as you said, so the DC area has had, I believe, 3 white Christmases in recorded weather history. Everybody seems to think it snows so much here, and it's usually about 50 degrees. Sometimes it rains.
Yep.
Yep.
Not that great. So
Yeah.
everybody up north, think of us when it's Christmas Day. Well, I guess it's fun though. I mean, when you get a new bike as a kid, you get to ride it around. Some kids can't do
Yeah,
that.
that's true. Yeah.
That's true.
So another thing on the holiday theme here, we had to ask this question. It was going to be focused on, when I asked the Leszczynskis about this a couple of years ago, it focused on arguing at the dinner table on holidays about engineering stuff. So you guys get a little bit more of an easy one here. How often do the two of you talk, and how much of the conversation is focused on engineering? And Dora, you get to go first.
We talk every day, whether it's, over text or call, but I think pretty much we call almost every day. And I would say as I've gotten older, we've talked more about work actually. So I guess a lot of the conversation isn't specifically about equations and numbers, but just around the PhD program and how do I respond to this email? What do I say in this situation? So a lot of mentoring on that side too. But I guess, growing up, honestly, even before I knew I wanted to do geotech or engineering, during road trips, we would get lectures in the car about the road cuts and the geologic formations and all of that. So it's been a constant pillar in the family from the get-go. But lots of good lessons learned on the road for sure.
So Lucas, we could go a lot of different ways for this one. When did you know that she was going to be an engineer?
Well, we can go a lot of ways, but I can tell you before I answer your question, all the ways that we took to go on vacation, they weren't the shortest. They were the ones that took us through some geologic cuts or some interesting dams or mines or whatnot, right? So Dora has always been very inventive. We'd go to restaurants, and even when she was 3 or 4, she would mix the little packets of sugar with something in the table and do her experiments with animals and have a small microscope that should be checking everything. And when she went to the Ohio State University, she went to be a biomedical engineer. That was her major. And one day she decided to switch, and she called her mom and asked, "Hey mom, I'm thinking about switching. Do you think that is going to be upset?" And I said, why I would be upset? I'm very happy you following the steps, but that she had all the freedom to choose whatever major she wanted to. I was very, very happy. And then she could have gone many different ways, but she decided to go to sustainability in geotechnical engineering. It's a pleasure. We have so much more in common to talk now. It's very good. The bond has actually increased. So, yeah.
Do the non-engineers in the family get annoyed when you guys go down one of these pathways?
So my mom and dad visited over the summer, and we drove to a winery up north from Davis, and we're driving, and we get to kind of this long-winded road, and we're looking at all the rolling hills and whatnot, and at some point Dad goes, "What does everyone notice about the hills?" And I know that he's looking at the landslides, and the headscarps and everything. And then we spent 5 minutes, my sister and my mom, talking about things. And then we eventually got to the point, and we got, it was like 10-minute road, and we got this lesson on landslides and slope failures. And I think my mom is it's been 30 years that she's been
Yep.
She's been probably to more centrifuge facilities than most geotechs have, because she tags along and she's so curious and always interested. And so
Yeah.
I don't think they get too annoyed, to answer the
I don't think
question.
so. I don't think so, Brad. And if you ask any member of immediate family, I think they all would get the question to define what effective stress is correctly. They understand the concept. No,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that a lot. The other question that we ask everybody when they come on the show, and I think I'm keeping track here. Lucas, I think you're first on this one. How did you first get involved with ASCE and GI?
Oh boy, I think it was in '96. I was at Hopkins doing my PhD, and there was one of the conferences on engineering mechanics and constitutive modeling, and because I was there, it was hosted there. I got involved and I became a member, and since then I'm active with the society, but it was '96. I clearly remember that because I was coming from Brazil. I did my master's there. I was not very familiar with the activities of the society or the Geo-Institute, but my first exposure was while I was doing my PhD some 30 plus years ago.
Oh, that's excellent. Dora, what about you?
Yeah, so I when I was in undergrad, I did some geotech research, and my professor at Ohio State, Dr. Daniel Pradell, was involved with ASCE, and so I had heard about it and wasn't a member until I came to Davis, and I went to Geo-Congress in LA a couple years ago, and well, I don't know if that was the first Geo-Congress I went to. Maybe I'm misremembering, but anyhow, the first one that I went to, I gave a presentation on a paper I had submitted, and got to meet lots of folks, and actually got involved with the sustainability committee there as well, and worked alongside Chris Nelson and Ranjiv Gupta, who are in the committee and hold leadership roles there, and we put together a report on the different carbon calculators and in geotech, and so I've worked alongside them in that aspect, and so kind of that's kind of where things started, and then I've been a member since, and get all the mail and the emails too, and we're involved with some of the smaller chapters here in the San Francisco and Bay Area, so we get to see folks on a more casual level and local level too. So.
And we'll talk a little bit about your activities for GI on campus there in a minute, but shout out Daniel Pradell. That was good to work that in there. And Lucas, we're going to go back to Hopkins next. You're an adjunct there, and you've been an adjunct there for a long time now. What's the most valuable thing you gain from doing that? I think it's hard, right, for a lot of people to imagine, I work all day and then I'm going to go teach this class 2 nights a week or whatever. Why do you continue to do it? What do you get out of it?
Well, it's first of all, it's my alma mater, and we always want to give back and be involved. They have a fantastic program, and it's a program that has evolved immensely over the past 15, 20 years. It's the Civil and Systems Engineering Department. They're looking into engineering from a very, very holistic perspective. All that COVID maps that we saw. From Professor Laura Gardner, it was like one of the top most influential people on Times Magazine. This was all done on the Civil and Systems Engineering Department. So there's lots of very, very smart people doing very interesting research, and just by frequenting the building, you get exposure to that. There's also access to the Soils Lab, and I like to do some research on my own on the side, sometimes on the weekend, sometimes with students. But the most important thing is how rejuvenate I feel from dealing with these extremely bright early 20s young men and women and young people at Hopkins that have the future ahead of them, and they get exposed to soil mechanics, and hopefully they learn a thing or two that will help them helping other people in the future.
So I'm not going to break any news here. Johns Hopkins is a pretty good school. What kind of looks do you get when you tell people that you're a professor there?
Yeah. People ask how you do it, right? It's Hopkins is a very catered program. It's a smaller classes. It's not like it's a different field than a state school with 80 people taking soil mechanics. Yeah. My classes are smaller. I have very bright TAs that help in grading the work, and it's something I have been doing. Gosh, since 2000, I taught my first college level soil mechanics class. So to me, it's something that comes naturally, and it's as you mentioned, it's a couple nights a week, 13 weeks per semester. It's if you add it up, it's less than a 6 month a year commitment. So
that is a great way to look at it. So Dora, we have to come back to you and talk a little bit about something you do on campus at Davis. And you're super involved in I'm going to get the acronym right, because I just call everything a GIGSO, right? A graduate student organization. But you guys have a fancy name for it. It's the Geotechnical Graduate Student Society.
Yep.
The GGSS. What is tell us about it first, and then tell us something unexpected that happened because of your involvement with it.
Yeah, so GGSS is our student-led graduate group on campus. We work to promote service and scholarship and networking both internally and externally as well. So we're responsible for hosting a series of events. We have our embankment dam workshop coming up in a couple of weeks. We host an annual open house to highlight students' research and progress every year. And so we have those big events, but in addition to that, we also do a lot of community outreach with local high schools and other programs here on campus. And we do some fun social things too. We try to really foster that tight-knit community. We just had a Friendsgiving last night at one of our group members' homes, and we all, brought a dish and had a potluck and hung out and talked for a few hours. And so it's really we have a smaller program, and so everyone is involved in some capacity, but the board of GGSS we're more just facilitators in making those things happen. So that's a little bit about that. I've been involved for 3 years now on the board. And this year I'm president, and I think one of the I guess this isn't such a fun answer, but it's always unexpected when you have to deal with the bureaucratic nature of a big university. So things like catering events, we have to go through a 12-step process to get things approved and signed and all those things. And so I've had to learn a lot about who to email for things and who to reach out to. And we just had an event where the school catering couldn't do it, so we had to find someone else and put that together last minute and organize, how are we paying for this? What's the account number and all these things. And so I think I wasn't expecting to be as well-versed in the financial department here at Davis, but I have immersed myself deeply in the ins and outs of all those processes. So
But just think, when you enter the real world, of all this great knowledge that you've been able to build up.
No, it's a skill in the toolbox for sure. It just was unexpected to your point. So
And we got to put you on the spot here. I mean, we love talking to people from Davis. I think you can go back and watch all the episodes of all the individuals we've had on from Davis. Dora, which faculty member is the most fun?
oh God, that's a that's a tough question. Um, I've taken classes with every faculty member other than Boris yet, but I think they all have unique personalities, and I think actually what makes the program really fun is how they interact with each other too. And so it's almost like having a version of the movie Inside Out with all the different emotions, and we have all the different professors who have their different things that they like and their personalities, and I think seeing everyone's dynamic put together is what makes it interesting. And so I know that's a non-answer to your question, but that's
what
makes
good
Davis
answer.
really special, I think, is how we all come together and bounce off of each other.
And I think they're all going to like that analogy too. So that was really good. I like that a lot. So the question that we teased at the beginning of the show, very rarely do we put the item that we teased all the way in the back of the show, but that's how Director's Cut works sometimes. I didn't think this answer was going to be this good, but you guys are all over this one. I can't even remember who's going to go first. So Lucas, I guess we're going to start with you on this one. Do you have a time when you should have gone to the doctor or the hospital, but you didn't go?
Well, not for the last 30 years, Brad. I gotta tell you, like my wife won't let it slip. If someone sneezes or starts show some signs of any illness, like she gets us on the move, like you can't trick her. She knows something is wrong. So I don't know, Dora, if you agree with me. I think you would. Yeah.
No, I think we are on the side of caution. Maybe that's why we decided to do engineering, Dad. It all stemmed from being very risk averse.
So do you guys ever push back when she wants you to go, or is that just like not a good idea?
Well, the thing is, go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead, please.
She's right all the time, though. So we can push back, but at the end of the day, if we do what she says, we will get better faster. And it is pretty much consistently the right call. So I've learned that I just have to take the advice. It's typically the best advice. So
that's amazing, though. Which one of you is more stubborn, do you think? Dora, you got to answer this one first. I want to hear both of your take on this.
I think by nature of being younger, I'm probably more stubborn still. But it depends on the.
I'm pretty stubborn. Yeah. I'm pretty stubborn. But Brad, you had no idea before you have a chance even to get better. She already scheduled 3 appointments for you. So and said, hey, like it's Monday at 10 a.m. and the other one is at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, and that's how it rolls. So yeah.
And it's with all the specialists, we could, someone knows the doctor who knows this doctor, and somehow we have the foot in the door with it. So I don't even question it anymore. I just show up where I'm told.
Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. I love that. So we have to put a Thanksgiving question in here, right? We already had the thing about the closest thing to Thanksgiving in Brazil, but now we're going to talk about the actual Thanksgiving as it happens in the United States of America every year on the 4th Thursday. Dora, we're going to start with you on this one. What is your favorite Thanksgiving tradition or memory?
Yeah, so I think, we all love to cook in the family, and Thanksgiving is one of the American traditions that we've really fully adopted and really love. And every Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we would start cooking, and we would put together very engineering of us, but Dad would put together a Google Doc with all the ingredients that we had to buy, all of the recipes, everything organized. So we would start cooking the Tuesday before, and everything's made from scratch. So cornbread is done and dried out for the stuffing. Doesn't think I'm in here anymore. That's okay. It adjusted, but we made the cornbread from scratch. We make the biscuits from scratch. We make everything. So it all has to start ahead of time. There was one year we made like 4 different pie recipes because we were trying different crusts. And so we had the whole dinner table, just flour everywhere. Oh, there it goes again.
And now the lights are back.
I just have to talk with my hands more. But anyhow, just a lot of good memories, and being far away from home for the past, the last Thanksgiving we celebrated together was when I was a sophomore, in undergrad. So it's been a few years, and so I try to recreate some of that on my own over here. But definitely just getting together, making all the food, and spending the week doing that was fun times. So
Lucas, what about you?
Oh, to me, Brad, I love cooking, and I do all the traditional American recipes with a twist. And there's no better turkey than the one we bake at home. I challenge everyone on that, and we start to add all of Dora's sisters and my wife. They all have very peculiar tastes, so it's the number of side dishes is disproportional to the number of people showing up there. I cook, I set the table, I take my shower, we eat. Then I'm in the couch watching football, and I won't be bothered about the cleanup, right? I clean the kitchen for the cooking, but not for the dinner. Then it's family time. But it's a very good time of the year. I think it's a time for reflection. I hope everyone watching this will have some time to be thankful for all that we have had. I know life sometimes is not easy, but we all have something to be happy about and thankful about, someone that has helped us in the past. And it's something that's also a tradition that we have, is to think about what we're thankful for and have a moment with the close ones.
Oh, super well said. Now, though, you open the door here. Director's Cut is, I always say, at its heart, a show about music, sports, and food. And you need to, you mentioned that you tweak these recipes. You've got to give us a Brazilian twist on an American Thanksgiving classic. What's one of your favorites?
One of my favorites is adding some fruit juices to the cranberry sauce.
Oh, yes.
So you can try different types of tropical fruits. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I always have 2 batches, a more traditional one and one that we try each year, and we're still exploring that. So, yeah.
So I'll give it I go with the whole berries, right? So not just the cranberries, but I'll put blueberries and raspberries and blackberries in there. I haven't done the tropical stuff, but I would imagine pineapple's got to be fantastic in there. Did that work?
No, pineapple didn't work well. What worked well was some fruits that you can buy in DC in the Brazilian stores. You can buy the concentrated juice. It's called cajá, and you can blend it, and it's a little bit acidic. So it worked really well. So
I was afraid you were going to say that. So when I went to Brazil for work in about 2013, a lot of the food that you can get at the grocery store in Brazil is actually pretty similar to what you buy here. It's probably one of the more similar places I've been. I tried to bring home cashew juice, and the security guys at the airport took it, and I thought they were going to give it back when I went through. So I just waited there, and the guy turned around and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, you're going to give that back, right?" "No, you can't take this." And so it was a great disappointment, and nobody in the family got to try it. But this sounds good. I got to give this a shot. Dora, do you have any twist on anything?
I don't know if I think we cook a lot of like very peculiar dishes. I don't know if they're necessarily Brazilian, but
doesn't
one
matter.
Of my favorites
we just need a recipe. That's Thanksgiving.
We make if you get corn on the cob, like fresh, and you cut it up and you brown some butter and you toss the corn in and you chop up some fresh mint and you put that in with it and just salt and pepper. It is my favorite. It's so good. And it sounds so strange because savory mint sometimes doesn't appeal to people, but it is just delicious as a side dish.
It pairs very well with the turkey.
And the cranberry sauce. Oh, it's so good. So that's my favorite one.
That is a great way to wrap us up. So Lucas, Dora, you guys made it through all the questions, the bonus questions. We got recipes, and that was really good. This is what a Thanksgiving Director's Cut is all about. For our viewers out there, if you liked what you saw, and how could you not? You're going to go try some of these fantastic things that these Lucas and Dora recommended cooking. Again, click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. So Lucas and Dora, thank you guys again so much for doing this, and happy Thanksgiving to you both. And I hope this was fun today.
Yeah, this was great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
And again, for all of our viewers, we will see you next week with a brand new Director's Cut. Happy Thanksgiving to the entire geotechnical community. And there's another big holiday coming soon, so you can look out for that. And until then, we'll see you next week.